There's about $400 trillion worth of assets that can be tokenized. And if blockchain and Ethereum grow at the rate that was typical of, say, network computing or e-commerce, that this ecosystem should grow at around 25% a year, every year for the next 20 years. I am Paul Brody. I am the global blockchain leader at Ernst & Young. That is my day job. And my night job is that I am the chairman of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance.
How do you balance those two?
I don't. I mean, I think they go together, right? This is, Ethereum is my passion. I've been working on Ethereum for more than 10 years. I built IBM's first blockchain on Ethereum. I actually was on the alpha version of Ethereum. I got help from Vitalik. I went to EY. I convinced the folks at EY that we should be in the blockchain business. And once I got that done, I convinced us that Ethereum is the play that we need to make. And this T-shirt was actually from a couple years ago. It was an important T-shirt. It was like our coming out T-shirt, where we just admitted that we are an ETH Maxi firm.
Speaking of being an ETH Maxi, we're here at EthCC in Brussels. I want to ask you what brought you specifically here this year, and what are your sort of main expectations from this year's conference?
So our mission, my goal is really pretty straightforward. I want the world of enterprise to use blockchain as the glue to tie companies together. Today, companies, they transact with each other in all kinds of very complicated, messy, and expensive ways. I have believed for a long time, smart contracts and tokens are the way that companies should do business with each other, right? Every company, every business agreement boils down to, I've got money, you have stuff, and we're exchanging my money for your stuff under the terms of an agreement. Well, the money and the stuff can be represented as tokens. The agreement is a smart contract. And so our mission has been to get people to do that. The problem has been there's no privacy on public Ethereum. I'm a big believer in public blockchains, but there's no privacy. Over the last 8 years at EY, we've been developing privacy technology that runs on public blockchains. In fact, we showed at our very first version of our privacy layer, L2, called Nightfall, we showed the prototype at DevCon in Prague in 2018. We've been improving it and improving it. It's now in production. Version 3, it's a ZK optimistic rollup. Version 4 is a ZK rollup. One ZK for privacy, one ZK for instant finality. I'm here and I go to all the Ethereum events because I want the world to know about this. I want them to know what we do. I want them to know how to use it. We took this code and we've donated it into the public domain, and we want to make privacy on public Ethereum a standard tool that everybody can leverage.
Certainly a noble cause, and I'm sure over the years you've made quite a bit of progress on that. And I do have some questions specifically about EY and the technology and the sort of underlying blockchain technology. But before we get there, I want to ask you what the main discussions that you've had this year at ETC have been. And I know you also attended the RWA Summit. What are the sort of high-level talking points that you're focusing on this year?
So there's probably 2 or 3 big ones. So one is I'm really trying to convince people privacy tech is ready for prime time. It's industrializable, it's usable. We're building stuff for clients. You can too. That's probably item number 1. Item number 2, I've been talking to people about regulatory convergence. So I think the most bullish thing that's going on in this ecosystem right now, and what I'm trying to remind everybody of, is that if you step back and look at the big picture globally, what we're seeing is global regulatory convergence. We have moved from a place where regulators were uncertain or actively hostile to crypto to a place where pretty much everybody accepts it. It's regulated in most parts of the world. There's clear rules and structures, and the rules of the road are making it possible for the volume of investment in this ecosystem to explode. And when I say explode, I really mean like grow enormously. We think there's about $400 trillion worth of assets that can be tokenized. And if blockchain and Ethereum grow at the rate that was typical of, say, network computing or e-commerce, that this ecosystem should grow at around 25% a year, every year for the next 20 years.
I was going to ask you for alpha towards the end of our interview, but I think that's brilliant.
Right. The hardest thing that people are struggling to grasp, I think, and they're not behaving this way, and we see evidence of this all over the place. People are kind of burning through their capital too quickly. Like the most important thing I tell people is the way that industries are completely transformed, the way the world gets re-engineered isn't 1 year, 200% growth, or 3 years of 100% growth. It's 20 years of 25% a year growth. And if you want to be successful in this ecosystem, you need to have a mental roadmap and a business roadmap that is a decade or two long.
And on that, you've been in the space for quite some time.
A decade.
For 10 years. Is there any particular update or piece of news or a single piece of innovation that you've come across this year that you would say is the single most consequential or significant for the blockchain space, aside from regulatory convergence, which you just mentioned?
That's actually a really tough one, right? I mean, I think what I am excited about, I'm excited about a couple of things. First of all, I'm excited about privacy technology. It's not new, right? We've been working on it for a long time, but there's this point at which you cross a threshold from it being like something to talk about versus something that you can actually do. The second thing that I've been excited about is not so much regulatory convergence, but the increasing maturity of the entrepreneurs in this space. I see more people building, instead of saying we hate regulators, we don't want to be regulated, I see people thoughtfully building for a regulated environment and trying to design compliance in. Like I was at the RWA Summit, as you talked about, and what was interesting was listening to people thoughtfully describe how they're thinking about KYC, around AML. How do you implement regulatory compliance, and how do you do it in a way that does not create lots of security risks? I thought the quality and the maturity of the conversation in these environments was better than has been ever before, and that kind of excited me. I thought it was awesome.
It's great to hear. I want to turn very briefly to Ernst & Young. I found reports that you guys have been working or exploring, let's say, the business applications of ZK proofs since at least 2018. Is that accurate?
Actually, we started in 2017. And as I mentioned, we showed the prototype of our first piece of privacy tech at DevCon in 2018.
Mm-hmm. My question on that is, firstly, that's a long time for any project. So what were the major roadblocks that you ran into, aside from maybe the size of the organization that we're talking about? And secondly, can you share the sort of key milestones and achievements over the last couple of years?
Yeah, so I think I was very lucky. When I first went into the board of directors of EY, the management committee, and sort of made this pitch for like, hey, you need to give me money for blockchain, right? I showed them a chart. It was a Gartner hype cycle chart from 2002. And this wasn't 2000, this was 10 years ago. I said, listen, this chart is all the stuff that was both hot and cool and not hot and stupid and pointless in 2002. And what you need to know about this chart is that every single thing on this chart, whether it was considered at the peak of the hype cycle or at the bottom of the hype cycle, is essential to our business today. And what you're going to need to remember is that today, right now, you're about to give me some money for crypto because you think it's exciting and you're reading stuff about it in the Financial Times. I want to promise you that 18 or 24 months from now, you're going to read articles saying how crypto and blockchain are useless and stupid and pointless and a waste of time. And you should ignore them, right? The same way that 15 years ago, people were saying biometric IDs were never going to work. But we use them like 100 times a day on our phones now, right? If we are going to be successful at this business, we have to have a perspective that's a decade long. And so that was essential. And so even though there have been obstacles up and down, because I keep reminding people about the long-term roadmap, it's been extremely helpful. We've managed to overcome the obstacles, right? We've had more problems than I care to say, but we have always somehow managed to arrive at the right answer. That's why I'm here. I've been here for 10 years. In terms of the critical milestones, one thing I love to tell people is between our first prototype and where we are today, between Nightfall, what we called OpsChain Public Edition Alpha, and what is today Nightfall 4, we've improved the performance of our ZK system by a factor of 10,000, right? That's amazing. That is totally amazing. Mm-hmm. And I know other people, Vitalik talks about this a lot, how the performance of ZK in general has improved much faster than anybody expected. We've had the same experience. We've learned a lot from some of the other teams in this space as well. So there's a milestone that we track, which is what is the cost per transaction, right? We started at $100 a transaction back in the days when ETH was $250. Now we're down to like a penny or two a transaction, which is amazing. That's an important milestone. We're now approaching what I think of as the more important milestones, the ones that really matter, which is just last month, we signed our first ever client to do supply chain management with tokenized assets running under privacy on public Ethereum. That's a blockbuster milestone, right? So I'm super proud of that, and I can't wait to issue the press release when the production comes. The second thing is we have been running for several months now a client that does renewable energy purchasing using a zero knowledge based smart contract circuit. So it's a kind of a privacy black box, again, running on public Ethereum. Like the real world use cases with privacy on public Ethereum are the benchmarks that matter. You get the first client, you make them happy, you turn them referenceable, and then you sell this to 10,000 other companies. That's my goal.
And we're not just talking about any company in the world that's gone and figured this out. It's one of the big four. So I think that in and of itself is worth talking about as well. For our audience members who might not be aware, could you please explain EY's Nightfall protocol and maybe a little bit about why it's really important for enterprise blockchain solutions as well?
Yeah, so basically the cool thing about blockchain is it allows you to have a level and fair playing field, right? There is a danger in all of these private, centralized e-commerce systems that we live with today that the operator of the system, first they get buyers and sellers together and to create a lot of value. But then over time, they become a monopoly, right? Because of this virtuous cycle, right? More buyers attract more sellers and you become a dominant player. And then you shift from creating value to extracting it. Right? And the beauty of public blockchains like Ethereum is they are extremely monopoly resistant. So people in the social world talk about censorship resistance. People in the business world don't pay enough attention to monopoly resistance. That is why Ethereum is so important. It offers monopoly resistance for business users. What we did with Nightfall was we said, okay, public blockchains give you monopoly resistance, but they don't come with privacy baked in. We need to add a privacy layer on top of Ethereum that allows companies to transact with each other without having to disclose to their competition what they're doing. And one thing that's very important, and I spend a lot of time talking to regulators about this, is there's a very big difference between anonymity and privacy. So money launderers and criminals want to move money anonymously. They don't want anybody to know from or to or anything else. Legitimate businesses, what they want are privacy. And most importantly, what they want is privacy from their competition. That's what we built Nightfall to do. A fully decentralized, privacy-enabled system. It's only open to business users and it can't be used anonymously.
Would you say then that sort of the key challenge or one of the main challenges that enterprises face when adopting blockchain is that sort of missing privacy layer?
There's a number of challenges. The missing privacy layer is the foundational technical challenge, right? Because otherwise you end up having to go into some kind of off-chain solution. So that's the missing foundation layer. But one of the analogies I talk to business users about a lot is go back to the early days of e-commerce. Right. At first, you needed SSL encryption just to move data privately on the public internet. And so that was an important problem to solve. But that wasn't the only problem. It turns out that we solved that problem and then people are like, whoa, how do you do e-commerce if we don't have pictures of the products that we're offering? Right? And how do we do e-commerce if when we get pictures, we try to send product through the package system, and the package system, the whole logistics system in the old days was designed for like, let's ship a pallet of something to a store, not an individual package. And the reason why you can't transform whole industries overnight is because every time you solve one problem, you discover another, right? So we can enable privacy in blockchain commercialization. And the next thing you discover is companies don't have the infrastructure or the tools to properly tokenize assets. So then they learn how to tokenize the assets, and then they discover that in their particular country or industry, there's not a legal framework for using that token or something like that. So the way this is going to happen is we're going to solve a problem, we're going to enable a few use cases, then we're going to hit another brick wall, and we're going to have to solve that. And that is why it's this like continuous 20-year process, not a big bang overnight.
And you're in it for the long run.
Absolutely.
I love that. So I want to ask some more company-specific questions, if I may, because it fascinates me. And years and years ago, I was writing about blockchain use cases, and supply chain management was emerging as one of the sort of hot topics. But then you talk to people within the Ethereum community, and everyone was like, "Yeah, but there's so much more exciting stuff. Supply chains are so boring, blah blah blah." But I get the impression from what you're saying that for us to be able to get to these really, really exciting use cases, we need to sort of solve some of the mundane, boring problems, and that's what you've been working on for years. And EY's...
Call me strange, but I think supply chain is exciting, right? I was in a meeting today, honestly, and the person was describing to me like another algorithmic lending protocol, and I just thought, oh my God, I can't. I don't care. I do not care. I do not care about yet another lending protocol. It's not interesting to me.
What's the next most exciting thing after supply chains then?
Procurement. Right. Again, if I come back to, and I always sound like, the people who know me well, I sound like a broken record. All business agreements, money for stuff under the terms of an agreement. So I need to be able to represent the money. I need to be able to represent the stuff. Money, like stable coins. I love stable coins. Hugely, tremendously important for the future of commerce. Stuff, tokens, real world assets, oracles. This is especially important, right? If you do crypto, everything you need to know about your crypto exists on the blockchain. The minute you start dealing with assets that don't exist on the blockchain, the important question is like, okay, I have a token. Is that real? Does that, you bought a token of gold or a US dollar? Is it in a bank account or a vault somewhere, right? Attestation, external oracles, that's hugely important and to me very exciting. And then smart contracts, right? So if you think about it again, money for stuff under the terms of agreement in a financial world, there are no complex agreements, right? It's a swap, right? My money for your stuff. That's how things like Uniswap work. There's no complex agreement. But the way that that's not how businesses do business with each other, right? What businesses do is they say, okay, I am going to use your part that you designed in my vehicle. And because this part that you designed only works in my vehicle, right? It's a version of an axle or a special door handle or whatever it is. We're going to cut a deal. It's going to be like a 10-year deal, and you're going to give me a discount for this, and I'm going to guarantee you volumes, right? Complex business agreements are hard to represent in smart contracts, and the content of that information needs to be private because it's just as important as the price and the volume are the terms and conditions. So getting all of these things to work and getting them all to work together is, at least to me, hugely exciting. And they solve so many big problems that exist in the business world. And I'll just give you an example of one. Think about a bank. Like if I want to send you some money, it has to come out of my account. Or it has to come out of somebody's account, right? And banks are, because it's about money, banks are incredibly diligent about making sure that like if I put $5 in your account, they took $5 out of somebody else's account, right? Believe it or not, in the business world, that's not how inventory works. I can move inventory anywhere, I can create stuff, I can say, well, we received 100 widgets today, and nobody will make sure that 100 widgets came out of some other inventory pool. On a blockchain, if everything is represented as a token, then I can apply as much rigor to a widget, to a smartphone, to a door handle for a car as a bank does for a financial transfer. And that is transformational for the accuracy of how companies operate. And I'm sorry, I come across as incredibly nerdy because I think that's fun and exciting, but it is.
That's why we're sat here talking to you. And I want to ask you on that question, on that note, do you ever talk to, obviously board members, you've explained this to them for years and years and years. Have you ever talked to clients of EY and had to explain this and sort of done it in your usual passionate way and hit a brick wall?
So occasionally you hit a brick wall because there are people who have made up their mind before you arrived. More often I encounter a different obstacle, which is what they say is, There are one of two obstacles. One is like, yes, but not in my lifetime, right? Like, yes, I agree with you, AI or blockchain is the future, but it's many, many years away. I don't need to think about it, right? That's one obstacle I encounter. There's another obstacle I encounter, which is, that sounds awesome. We're going to go build our own private blockchain. And that has been one of the toughest battles of my life, is helping people understand that the secret sauce, the value of blockchain, is that it's public. And there is no point in a centrally managed, decentralized ledger. It's an oxymoron. It's in the name right there if you really think about it, and it doesn't work. And I've had this discussion so many times. I wrote a book. It's called Ethereum for Business. And the book has 3 parts. And the first part is like, I explain like, what is Ethereum? How does it work? And why is it so important that public blockchains, why are they the source of value, not private chains or something like that? I have a second section of the book, which is like, here's all the use cases I have seen. Like, here's all the ways that you can use this like to create actual value in your business. And then I have a third section of the book, which is like, here's all the obscure topics you might be wondering about: carbon footprint, auditing, regulations, things like that. But I wrote it because I've had these conversations 1,000 times, and eventually, I need to write it down and share it with other people.
Just got it off your chest.
I did.
I'm looking forward to getting a signed copy of the book.
I would be delighted to. And I have a special first edition NFT.
I would absolutely love that. And that sort of raises a question in my mind of the competition in your space. Part of the big four, do your competition consider your opinion about public blockchains versus private blockchains to be the truth, or do they have their own truth?
So I come from a world where I personally believe in the idea of objective actual truth. It's not that I have my truth and you have your truth. It's that I'm right and they're wrong.
I love
it's
that.
a very simple, I'm very passionate about it. But honestly, like when there's two words that I consider like fighting words, right? Blockchain agnostic. When somebody says that to you, what it means is I suck at everything, right? I believe we made a correct and principled decision to just focus on public blockchains at EY, to make that our main priority. It's not that we never do private chains, but I personally deeply, strongly believe in their value proposition of the public ones. Secondly, we made a very strategic decision, which is in a world where you get limited budget and resources and you get limited investment capital, it is better to be the best at one thing than okay at many things. So it is possible, it is well and truly possible that I am actually wrong, but we put all our chips on Ethereum, right? And we did it because we wanted to be the best at it. And what I truly believe is that we missed a lot of business in other chains, but that the payoff, that it has largely paid off. And when I look at my competition in this industry, most of them actually haven't survived, right? Most of my peers have left their positions. Most of our competitors have either quietly, nobody says, by the way, I'm leaving this business, we didn't work out. They just quietly stopped competing. And what we have seen is that outside of financial statement audit, almost all of our peers have largely exited the business of building technology on blockchains.
Is that strategy and these achievements that you're describing sort of a competitive edge? Does it give EY an ability to sort of create and maintain a competitive edge among its peers?
I certainly believe so. We built a very good business. We built a great business. We built an incredible reputation in this industry. You go to talk to any industry analyst like Gartner, Forrester, they will tell you if you want to be on Ethereum, you need to go talk to EY, that they are the experts in this space. I love it occasionally, like on Twitter, you'll see somebody will make a comment like, EY, what are they doing in blockchain? And the thing that warms my heart is you'll see like a bunch of true crypto OGs just pile on the comment. They're like, bro, you have no idea what you're talking about. These people are for real. They understand crypto. They understand blockchain. Like that fills me with happiness. I want to be in a position where CEOs look to EY and say, hey, is it cool, safe, legal for me to be on blockchain? And our senior accounting, regulatory, audit people look at them and say, yes, right, it's going to be okay, right? And then the CEO turns to his head of IT or engineering and says, what should we do? And what they say is, we should build on Ethereum and we should work with EY. Like, that is my goal in terms of how we make this market work. And I think when I look at like the reports I get about share of voice, share of mind, kind of industry analyst, assessment, size of our business, I think we are number one in this space.
Happy to hear that. I have two questions on that. One, what are your top priorities in getting to that sort of vision of yours? And two, what are the key milestones that you are working towards?
So top priority for me is consistency. So I've been in the tech business for like 25 years, and which makes me old. But one of the things that I have observed over and over again, and not just in blockchain, but in the internet, in mobile, in lots of spaces, is companies chase fashions and trends without consistency, and they do not take a strategic look. And I've seen this before when I was at other companies. They'd be like, oh, we tried this and it didn't work. No, you did it really badly, and then you proceeded to learn the wrong lesson from the experience, right? And I think people underestimate, and one of my favorite phrases that I hear from Jeff Bezos reportedly says is, there's no compression algorithm for experience. Like, if you disband a team, all that experience disappears, and when you try to bring people back together, it's gone, like they've lost it. We've had the same team working on crypto and blockchain at EY for a decade. We have forgotten more stuff than most of our peers have learned about how to do things right with regulatory compliance, be crypto native, be token centric, that kind of thing. So first of all, consistency. My number one goal is we have to keep at it, right? That we can't be in or out one day and the next. We got to be in to stay in and to win it. Number two, it's about simplicity. So we have made over a decade an incredible amount of progress in terms of the core engineering stuff of the product. Now what we need to do is continuously boil it down and simplify our technology so that anybody can use this without having to be a zero knowledge expert, a blockchain expert, right? Over the last 18 months, we've taken every single one of our products that used to be quite complex to implement. We have turned them into simple APIs. Simple documented APIs. You want to put tokens on Ethereum in privacy, use our API. You want to put them without privacy, you want to mint an NFT, you want to deploy a smart contract, like all you need is an API. And every enterprise developer knows how to write to and receive data from an API, and our goal is to expand the coverage and every single day make these things simpler and easier for people to use and adopt.
The word adoption really, really gets me there, because I get the impression from talking to some of the more technical founders that at least the ones that have also worked in traditional finances, the reason why they're here and what really brought them into the space is because, so aside from the key underlying tenets of blockchain and crypto, things here are designed to be simple, and things in TradFi are designed to be complex, and there's obviously reasons for that. So I'm curious what your thoughts on that sort of intentional complexity versus intentional simplicity are.
So I would actually disagree with somebody who says that TradFi is designed for complexity. TradFi, all finance, all business operations is complex. Like, the minute you spend time in business, what you discover is that like the plumbing is messy and the sausage making is ugly. Like, there's no way around it, right? It's a mess everywhere you go. The minute you peek under the hood, you're like, whoa, like it's shocking, right? And Wall Street is a great example, right? Like, all these pieces that are kind of cobbled together, right? It's not an accident that it used to take 3 days to settle securities, and before that it took a week, and we're struggling to get it down to a day, right? So the sausage making has always been incredibly messy. And the most successful TradFi firms, especially the consumer-facing ones, they're the ones who make it look easy, right? I think about like my bank account or my brokerage provider. I can go in and buy like an index fund. I can buy an S&P 500 index fund. I don't know where it's traded. I don't know how it's settled. I click a button that says reinvest all dividends. I don't know where the dividends go. I don't know any of that stuff, and I don't care. It's easy. I click buy, and it happens. And then the next day, I get an email that says this S&P 500 index fund, the shares of it that you bought have been deposited in your brokerage account. Boom, simple, right? The most successful ones are the ones that take all the incredible complexity of the process and hide it, right? Think about, and the company that I hugely admire is Shopify. Like, they're very impressive. E-commerce has never gotten simpler. It's only gotten more complex. There's taxes, there's logistics, there's cybersecurity, there's credit card payments. Look at what Stripe did, another great example. They took something very complex and boiled it down to a super simple, a few lines of code that you can drop into your application. The most successful players are the ones that take all that complexity, like all this, the complete mess, right? If you've ever seen that movie Brazil, it's highly worth watching. Like if you take all the complexity, all the mess, and you boil it down into something simple and elegant, that is what drives kind of really hyperscale adoption.
And you think we're missing that here in the crypto Web3 space?
We are not there yet, right? When I think about the hilarious experience, it's so humiliating to teach a friend how to buy an NFT. Like, okay, you need to do this. And by the way, we're gonna have to finish the session in 2 days because your bank just put a hold on your credit card. It just—
And then they lose all their money anyway.
Right. Oh, and by the way, you're gonna close your— it's complicated, and it's still too complicated. Somebody who's done a really beautiful job, really worth admiring, I think, in the crypto industry is Patricio Werthalter, the guy over at POAP, right? Every single year, minting, sharing POAPs gets easier and gets more elegant. It gets better. They just hammer away at it. He hasn't given up. He makes it simpler. He makes it more elegant. And what I particularly love about what Patricio does is he is deeply committed to the Web3 ethos. Right, he has never taken any sort of Web 2 shortcuts. He works on making it elegant, and he tries to preserve the inherently Web 3 nature of the process. And so when I think about people who I admire and want to copy, he is a really great example.
What are the key steps that we still need to address in getting to that sort of ideal form of simplicity that can drive broader adoption? The term next billion users gets thrown around a bit, but you have access, I'm sure, to far more numbers than I do about how many people actually use on the consumer side Web3 products and how many people on the enterprise side use it. So what do we need to do to make things so simple that we actually can talk about the next billion users?
So if you look at a couple of the best examples, look at not at sort of Web3 companies, but particularly in Europe, there's this whole group of what are called challenger banks, neobanks, right? You sign up for the bank by taking a picture of your national ID, right? You never have to go into a branch. Everything runs on an app. We need to get to that level of onboarding, which, by the way, I think we're starting to. The on-ramp is getting smoother, and it needs to be done in a way that is fully regulatory compliant. One thing I've been encouraging smart crypto people to do is to go and work for the regulators. So we're here in Brussels, capital of Europe. My EY colleagues did me the favor of taking me around to see some of the policymakers here in Brussels at the European Commission level. And I came away from my meetings with them incredibly bullish. These people are trying to build workable, regulated infrastructure. It's not perfect, but MiCA is outstanding as a global benchmark of fair playing rules, clear rules of the road, right? It's a great example of sometimes Americans are oh, America innovates and Europe regulates. This MiCA is a wonderful example of how good regulation encourages innovation and investment. And one of the things that kind of stuck with me was that a couple of the regulators that I spoke to said, we have a bandwidth constraint, right? We know that more could be done around things like DeFi and other capabilities. We don't have enough people internally who really understand this technology and can help us write thoughtful regulations. And so I would encourage clever people to go help our regulators lay out more of the rules of the road, because the clearer those rules are, the faster people can deliver. I have immense confidence in the cleverness of the people in this industry to build stuff that is compliant with the rules as soon as somebody makes it clear exactly what the rules are.
I'm personally very optimistic after talking to you. I've seen that you're on the enterprise side of it, you're on the consumer side of it, and now you've also sort of touched on the regulatory bullishness. With that, I want to ask you if you have any sort of final words on EthCC, how far we've come as an industry, on enterprise blockchain, or the industry in general.
The industry is great. I love the people in this industry. I love their energy. We need to do a little bit better job of managing all the side events. It's Wednesday. I feel like I've been awake for 300 days. Old people like me need to go to bed in the morning, like in the evening. I can't go to the after party and then the after party and then be kicked out of somebody's Airbnb at 3:30 a.m. It doesn't work. Yeah, I like this industry. I've always felt welcome here. And one of the things I particularly love and appreciate is, specifically of the Ethereum community in general, is there is a public service mentality here that simply does not exist in other industries, right? Ethereum communities and ecosystems where we hear about public goods funding, public services, right? I think about people like Kevin Owocki, who helped start Kevin and Kyle over at Gitcoin, right? There are a ton of people in this industry who are in this industry and in this ecosystem to do good. And I feel like as an industry, we keep giving our critics like so much ammunition, scandals, theft, fraud, and the other people in this industry who are here for the purpose of public service kind of warms my heart. And very specifically, I have not seen a single community that does a better job of public service and caring about public service than the Ethereum ecosystem.
Paul, thank you very much for making time to talk to us. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to catch up with you hopefully very soon.
Thank you.